When most people look at Paralives, the first thing that comes to mind is simple. Oh, this is the indie life simulator that wants to go head-to-head with The Sims. But the truth is, there is a lot to this game that goes unnoticed, and some of its ideas are far more ambitious than they seem at first glance. And what's most interesting is several of these facts help explain why so many people have had their eyes on this project for so long. So today, I want to show you 10 interesting facts about Paralives that they didn't tell you. I'm Mary, and the video is about to start. One of the things that caught my attention the most in Paralives was precisely the construction system, and I need to talk about it because it's truly different from anything we're used to seeing in this genre. Paralives build mode is completely gridless, meaning without that rigid grid that limits everything. If you've ever played The Sims, you know exactly what it's like to want to make a slightly slanted wall or put a little plant in a different corner and simply not be able to because the game locks you into squares. In Paralives, that doesn't exist. You place walls at any angle you want with total freedom of movement. And it doesn't stop there. There's an integrated measuring tape that lets you adjust the length of the walls with absurd precision, which means you can create rooms with exact dimensions without having to count tile by tile. It's the kind of detail that seems small but makes a massive difference when building. What really got me excited was the possibility of making curved walls. Yes, actual curved walls. This opens up space to create round, organic houses, those more modern and unique architectures that we've always wanted but could never quite do right in a life simulator. It seems like the developers of Paralives understood that creativity doesn't fit inside a grid. One thing I think is essential in any life simulator is the feeling of following a complete journey. And from what has already been shown, Paralives seems to take this seriously with the characters' different life stages. From the start, the game will include all the main phases: babies, children, teenagers, and elders. And it's not just a basic visual change. Each stage has its own behaviors, animations, and ways of interacting with the world, which makes everything much more convincing. The most interesting part is how this can directly impact the way you play. A younger character will have completely different needs and possibilities compared to an elder, and this creates a much richer dynamic within the same family, or even over several generations. And I like that because it gives you that sense of real progression, you know? It's not just time passing, it's the character truly changing. If the game manages to make these transitions feel natural and full of detail, it could be one of Paralives' strongest points. A detail that seems simple, but that I found very charming, is the unique language that the characters use daily. Instead of speaking English or any real language, they communicate in a fictional tongue called Parl. And it's not just a bunch of random sounds, it was designed to convey emotion. So the way they speak changes depending on what they are feeling at that moment. This gives the game a very unique identity, because you aren't tied to direct dialogue, but you can still understand the mood of the conversation just by the tone, expressions, and the way they communicate. It becomes something more universal and even more expressive. I like this because it removes that feeling of repetition that many games in the genre end up having due to limited voice lines. Here, communication becomes part of the charm, almost as if every interaction had more personality, even without using real words. Another thing that got me genuinely excited is the fact that it goes for a true open world, without those loading screens that completely break the rhythm of the game. Here, you simply live in the city. You can leave your house, grab a bike, or just go on foot and explore everything seamlessly. Parks, shops, restaurants, everything is connected, without that abrupt cut every time you enter a new lot. This completely changes the sense of immersion, because if you think about it, in other life simulators, you often end up planning fewer outings just out of laziness because of the loading times. In Paralives, it seems the idea is the exact opposite, to encourage you to go out, explore, and see what happens along the way, almost as if it were a real, living little world. And honestly, this is the kind of thing that can completely transform the experience. It's not just about freedom of movement, it's about making the game flow naturally, without interruptions. It's that detail that sounds technical, but in practice, completely changes how you play and engage with the world. You know when you feel like a life simulator gives you freedom, but everything still happens within a mold? Paralives seems to want to break exactly that with its customizable world system. You aren't just stuck with the default city, you can tweak practically everything. Adjust lots, redesign streets, modify terrain, and even create neighborhoods with shapes very different from the traditional ones. It's the kind of tool that already gives you enough control to make the map your own. But the most interesting part is that this isn't even the limit. The developers are already planning a more advanced world creation system where you can literally start from scratch and build everything exactly how you want. And best of all, this is expected to arrive as a free update during early access. For me, this is what truly gives the game longevity, because it doesn't just depend on official content, the community's creativity comes into play too. And when a life simulator unlocks this level of freedom, it stops being just a game and becomes almost a creation tool. Man, if there's one thing we're not used to hearing in the world of life simulators, it's exactly this: buying the game just once and never having to pay for anything else. But the Paralives devs decided to flip the script for good. They've guaranteed in black and white that all future updates and expansions will be 100% free after you purchase the base game. Zero paid DLCs, zero content packs hidden in the store, zero unpleasant surprises on your credit card statement. It's the kind of news that makes you take a sigh of relief, you know? Think about it. We are so conditioned to this business model that when a studio decides to do something different, it almost sounds absurd. You buy the game, fall in love with the mechanics, then out of nowhere, an expansion drops with features that seem essential, and boom, there goes another 30 or 40 bucks. In Paralives, it looks like that won't happen. They want the game to grow along with the community, but without turning every new feature into a microtransaction. It's a bold commitment, especially for an indie project that needs to sustain itself. What I liked most about this approach is the transparency. They aren't guaranteeing the world just to sell pre-orders. They're basically saying, trust us, we're building something that will last, and you won't be punished for buying in too early. This creates a direct relationship between player and developer that we rarely see nowadays. You don't get that lingering feeling that you're being ripped off or that the complete game only exists for those who spent double the base price. Of course, we still need to see how this holds up in the long run. After all, development is expensive, but the intention alone counts for a lot. If they can deliver quality content for free, they might end up changing the standard for the entire genre. Personally, I'm rooting for it to work, because a life simulator that respects the player's wallet is exactly what we needed. What about you? Do you believe other studios will end up following this example, or do you think it's too much of a utopia? There is one thing that always ticks me off in life simulators: when characters look like robots programmed to smile and wave, but inside they are completely hollow. Paralives has arrived to bury that feeling for good. Parafolks aren't just pawns you drag around the house, they have real personality, the kind you actually feel during gameplay. And that already completely changes the vibe of the game. What got me hyped is seeing how personality traits aren't just stuck in a forgotten stats tab in the corner of the screen. They influence everything. How your character reacts to visitors, approaches strangers, makes decisions on their own, or even handle a domestic crisis. If they're shy, they won't go striking up a conversation at the neighbor's party. If they're stubborn, they might completely ignore what you told them to do just because they don't feel like it. It's a level of freedom that makes every save feel unique. And look at this crazy detail. They express emotion in the way they walk. Seriously, you can literally see from a person's body language if they are down, excited, or ready to pick a fight with that annoying neighbor. The animations capture these emotions and translate them into body language, making everything much more cinematic. On top of that, autonomy is adjustable. So whether you're the type who likes to micromanage every single step or prefer to let life happen and just watch the chaos, the game gives you that choice. To me, this is the right path for a life simulator to take. It's no use having a beautiful house and expensive furniture if the person living there feels like a mannequin. When a character breathes, feels, and reacts in unexpected ways, stories emerge naturally without us having to force a script. It's exactly this kind of depth that can make Paralives become more than just a competitor, but an evolution of the genre. What about you? Do you prefer it when the game gives you total control or when it surprises you with its own decisions? There's a detail that seems small at first glance, but it completely changes how we view relationships within the game, the Together cards system. Instead of just watching a generic bar fill up or drain, social interactions here get a much more vivid representation, almost as if every conversation were building a visible story right in front of you. It works like this. While characters talk, a bar called Together fills up. But the really cool part is what happens next. As that connection evolves, cards appear that symbolize moments, breakthroughs, or even the mood of the relationship between the two. It's not just numbers going up, it's like seeing the relationship take shape in real time. For me, this solves a classic problem with life simulators. Often, you don't feel the weight of interactions because everything is hidden in cold, mechanical systems. Here, every conversation can generate something tangible, something you remember. It's as if the game is saying, "This mattered." And that makes every friendship, romance, or even rivalry much more impactful. Ultimately, this kind of mechanic brings the player closer to the stories that are unfolding. You aren't just grinding relationships to unlock a new interaction, you're watching a connection build piece by piece. And honestly, it's this kind of detail that marks the difference between a functional system and one that truly pulls you in. If there's one thing Paralives seems to be taking very seriously, it's giving the player total freedom to create however they want. And when I say freedom, I don't just mean changing wall colors or picking a different couch. It's customization on an almost absurd level. From the build tools to the Paramaker, everything was designed for you to tweak, adjust, and shape practically any detail without getting stuck behind annoying limitations. Further reinforcing this is full support for the Steam Workshop. This, for me, is already one of the biggest differentiators, because it's not just about what you create, it's about what the entire community will create together. Houses, characters, objects, wild ideas. Everything can be easily shared and downloaded. This kind of system transforms the game into a living entity that never stops growing, even without constant official updates. Now, it's worth noting an important detail. At launch, there won't be the famous official script mods, the ones that change deeper game systems. And that's fine. It might seem like a limitation at first glance, but when you look at the power of the tools already available, you can understand the vision. They want the base game to be flexible enough to allow for creativity without immediately relying on more complex modifications. Ultimately, what this shows is immense trust in the community. Paralives doesn't just want to be a closed game, it wants to be a creative platform where every player adds a new piece to the experience. Honestly, when a game embraces this kind of mindset from the beginning, its chances of staying relevant for years skyrocket, because content runs out, but community creativity has no limit. If you've played other life simulators, you know how almost unbelievable this is. Pets will already be in the base game of Paralives. No waiting months or years for a paid expansion just to finally have a dog or a cat in your home. On top of that, they've already confirmed horses at launch too, which honestly isn't that common within the genre. And let's be honest, Pets aren't an extra, they are an essential part of the experience. They change the household routine, create unexpected moments, and bring so much more life to the environment. So seeing Paralives treat this as a baseline feature rather than premium content already shows a very different mindset. It's not about holding back content to sell later, it's about delivering a more complete world right from the start. The most interesting part is how this immediately opens up storytelling opportunities in the very first hours of the game. You can create a family that starts out with a messy dog, a lazy cat, or even include horses for a more rural vibe. You don't need to adapt your save file later or restart when an expansion comes out. The game gives you these possibilities right off the bat, and that completely changes the rhythm of how you connect with it. To me, this type of decision shows that the focus is much more on the player experience than on aggressive monetization. It might seem like just a detail, but anyone who has spent years buying DLC after DLC knows how much weight this carries. And if Paralives keeps following this path, it won't just compete with the giants of the genre, it'll start redefining what we should expect from them.